your first role was actually TV.
I worked on 24 Hours in A&E. From that, got on to Daybreak. As soon as we got our mortgage, I quit my job and I was like, I need to get into sport, I need to get into football. I then ended up at Ball Street.
Was EXO the next stage?
Yeah. We made some great stuff, but everyone else has their own channel.
Yeah, that's a great point. You didn't at the time.
If I leave, I've got nothing. I
was
in the middle of
reason
nowhere.
To start your own channel.
I just had to start it. Had to. But it was scary, man, because I was trying to do stuff and the channel was failing. I was like, I don't know if I'm good at this. And so when it's not going well, honestly, it's excruciating. It's
Even
scary.
now, because you've obviously got a lot of success now.
I had to have a bit of therapy last year because I was sort of this.
Did you?
Yeah, because it was getting to a point where it was like, I need to get a better perspective on all of this. And yeah, God, once you start chatting, instead of it feeling like that, it can feel like that.
You're now getting all of this work from starting your own channel.
When I hit 100K, he got my address and sent me a bottle of champagne. And I thought, wow.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Inside the Industry Unfiltered with myself, Adam Smith, on the podcast today. A man I know very well. I'm going to describe you as a podcaster, presenter, content creator. It is James Allcott. Jimbo, how you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to sitting down and having a chat with you, mate. It's really good.
You said something quite interesting there. You're not used to being the other side of the camera. So.
Yeah. I get... I mean, not loads, but I get asked to come on a podcast and be the guest. And yeah, it makes me a little bit nervous. I'll be honest. Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous. Just because, just not used to that kind of control.
Yeah.
I'm always fearful that you're going to ask me a question and I'm not going to have any clue what the answer might be, but it is my own life.
Where did your sort of journey in the sort of media world start? Because I'm right in thinking your first role was actually TV.
Yeah.
YouTube. So tell me a bit about that.
So I always say the story for me was, I kind of was into sort of acting. I quite like comedy. I did the sort of comedy thing at GCSE drama, and I was like, oh, I like that. And then I kind of got to about 18, I just got self-conscious. I'll never forget it. We did this we had sort of drama lesson, and they went, right, we're going to do a little icebreaker, and we want you to pretend. I was like, whoa, what's that? What's that? No. So that kind of was like, oh, okay, that's not going to happen now. And then was like, well, what else am I good at? Sport. I was sort of generally captain of a lot of teams. And so I thought, oh, maybe I could coach. So I did, at university, I did a course doing that, sport development and coaching. And then sort of near the end of that, I had a little placement at Sheffield Wednesday. And I remember them saying there was just a very clear feeling that you needed to be an ex-player.
Really?
And obviously, I'm 19 at this point or 20 at this point. And I kind of just thought, oh, it's just that's not gonna happen. It's just you're not gonna get. And I think what excited me about coaching was coaching competitive football,
right?
More so than and I think the truth is, and I know people. I played football at lower semi-pro level with coaches for Cobham and coaches with coaches for Chelsea.
Yeah.
And you've seen the kind of rise that they've gone on, which shows that it could have been, it could have been done.
Yeah.
And then I just I was always going to go traveling after uni, did that. And I started writing a journal and I really enjoyed it and it felt creative. And I was like, oh, I think I'm creative. And my mum has been adamant that she would see sports presenters and she would say, that's you. That's
really?
From very young,
really?
13, 14. She's like, I can see you doing that.
Wow.
So that was probably planted in my mind. So then I was kind of like, I want to be a sports presenter. So I was trying to find my way into that. And, that's it. I think a lot of people probably ask you as well, how do you get wherever you want to get to?
All the time.
And I think you have to sort of go down roads.
Everyone's journey though is different.
So
completely different.
Yeah.
We had this chat with Spencer on this, and he's literally the polar opposite to me, but we've both, I think, done all right, but in very different fields. But it's like everyone's journey to where they get to is different, which I think is a great bit of advice for people. There is no right or wrong way.
No, totally.
Take an opportunity when it comes its way is what I'll always say.
Totally. And go. I also think walk towards those opportunities. You don't have to run. You do not have to run. Think of, okay, how am I going to get over there? And then walk there, metaphorically. So I was like, I think I want to be in TV. I think I want to be a sports presenter. I want to be a football presenter. So I got super lucky, and similar to you in terms of one thing I do really like about TV is you start as a runner and you do teas and food and all those things, and you make a good impression. You work hard, doing very basic things, got nothing to do with creativity, writing, whatever it might be. Yeah. but you show that you're made of something, and you should be. I always thought to myself, I want to be seen, not heard.
Okay.
So little things like, I knew the director, who was scary as well, so this suited this. But like, the director was all over the place. I know he likes a green tea, and I know he's going to have to sit there in the gallery.
Yeah.
So the green tea was there for when he sat down.
Great point.
And so I've not gone, here's your tea.
Yeah.
It's there. So anyway, so I think these are like little like life lessons that I think are useful in terms of like, and like seeing things and, putting out fires in terms of the workplace and just being a good team member, right? But I got really lucky because at ITV it was one where.
So you're ITV, sorry, the first.
Sorry,
one
yeah.
ITV,
So actually it was the London Studios, which was a place in Waterloo.
Off Waterloo, I know.
Yeah, where a lot of different shows are done, but a lot of ITV daytime shows are done, or were done. Also Graham Norton, Alan Carr.
And also back then, before the sort of social media, YouTube bubble, that huge shows in terms of audience.
Totally.
Not saying they're not now, but big eyes on them.
Yeah, but the world's changed for sure. And I think that's a really good point, because I was like, okay, what do I need to do? I need to get into that world. And then I quickly realized that you look at all these other presenters, they get into that world, then there's a screen test.
Yeah.
You do well in that screen test, and then you get your opportunity. So I was like, okay, that's what I need to do. Got very lucky, and because the London studios had in the top floor Al Jazeera Sport, which has gone off and become beIN Sports.
Yep.
So all of the staff there have got made their way over there. But at the time they were doing that, they would do ITV as well. And so within the studios, they would have 300 CVs, but they wanted someone who was into sport. And my whole CV, at this point, I'd come back, I'd messaged QPR. I said, could I do some reporting for you? Maybe report on the youth team. So I reported on the youth team when Raheem Sterling was in the youth team.
I shot a feature with Raheem Sterling when he was in the youth team, Skills School for soccer.
Yeah.
I filmed that.
So
directed that.
This is
and
mental.
he lost to a lad called Christian Nanetti, who now is playing for like Dover or something. But I remember being on site for that.
So I was in the back of the minivan on the way to a game against, I want to say Peterborough away, and I told Raheem that he'd lost.
Really?
Yeah. What a small world. Isn't that mad?
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I called my dad and said, they said, I can find out. I said, you watching?
Yes,
and
you're right.
I told
For the people that might be confused, that the format of Skills School changed. They used to announce the winner in the VT, but then with this one, it was the guests on Soccer M that announced who'd won. So he, at the time of filming, wouldn't have known he'd lost.
But they would play on a Saturday. The under-18s would play on a Saturday morning. So that's essentially my only interaction with Raheem Sterling, because he was quite a shy lad, and they're quite a shy team.
What a player! I remember speaking to Mark Bircham after, and he said, "This lad, just remember his name."
Yeah.
So true.
And like 3 weeks later, he'd gone to Liverpool.
Yeah.
And I remember chatting to Steve Gallen, who some people might know, Kevin Gallen, who's his brother. Incredible coach, had a great career, incredible human being as well, lovely bloke. And I was like, where's he gone?
Yeah.
Like, he's like, because you could see he was phenomenal.
You could.
And I've had a few of these so I met Ian Wright the other week, and I'd worked for a company that he was an investor in, and I'd never met him in getting close to a decade. I met him about a couple of weeks ago briefly, and I was an absolute melt. Because it was a moment for me. I was like, because I adore Ian Wright. I adore his fibre, like his soul,
personality, isn't he?
He is just such a great soul that I think that's why you love him. And Raheem Sterling's another one where I would love to sit down with him at some point and kind of go, we have actually met, like, and kind of tell him that story.
No, I don't.
I don't actually.
We divulged a bit. So you're ITV, Al Jazeera.
Yes.
And the screen test you were talking about.
Yeah, so 300 CVs, but fortunately mine was sporting based, whereas everyone else wanted to be a presenter.
Right, okay.
And I wanted to work in entertainment. I got in there, and it was all good, it was all fine. I very quickly noticed that you needed to be on screen, when I'm 23 here, to be on screen, you've got to be 35, look 35.
Yeah.
I also thought that at the time, and again, I can articulate this better now than I can then because the world's changed so much. I remember thinking, this is dry. It's like, here's the build-up, game. What do you think at halftime?
You mean
game.
Quite straight and polished?
Very structured. Maybe a wee bit stiff, although the presenters were all fantastic. And it was a great place to be fly on the wall and kind of, this... At any moment, there's an opportunity to sort of learn, and I don't mean like anything outrageous, just kind of see what's going on. And watching the presenters, watching Gary Lineker, Matt Smith in particular, absolutely incredible. How I would sit with the auto cue. Often it was a woman, and if I had 20 minutes left, I was like, can I just have a little practice on the auto cue? I'd watch, I'd do the 5 o'clock show, like I'd watch Vernon Kay, watch him presenting, like all these guys who
big
are
presenters you're talking
about.
And
I think, I got to say, I think we've kind of had different journeys. I think one thing where I'm lacking is I haven't had that experience that you've had, and you are such a pro at what you do, and there's so many technical aspects, so many people talking in your ear, and that's something that again comes with reps, with air miles.
And I totally agree.
And that's something that I haven't had that true opportunity to really kind of get into yet. But back then, that was the thing I was always watching. I was always watching the presenters going, "Oh, you're bad. Like you're here for the week." Do you know what I mean? And it's that confidence with the auto cue, with everything that's going around you. Matt Smith is a really interesting one where the auto cue was there, and I'd be reading the auto cue with him, and he's just bouncing all over the place, but still getting to the right place at the end. That's the sign of a good presenter,
because I think autocue can actually trip you up if you're trying to read it word for word, whereas if you can chuck a little ad-lib in or react or glance to... I always think the most natural presenters do glance to their co-presenter or do chuck an ad-lib in or pause. That's the real skill for it. You should never... An autocue shouldn't ever be running at the same pace continuously, because that means you're just reading at the same pace continuously. There should always be... Like we're chatting now, there's a pause in the way I'm talking. There's some bits are sped up, some bits aren't. You should talk as you would talk in a cafe or down the pub.
And that was a great thing with I remember the auto cue ladies, I think her name was Amy. I would sort of go, okay, well, how does this all work? And she would always say, I'm following you. You're not following me.
Correct.
So talk at the pace that you want. So these are tiny little things that I hope someday I'm going to need. But at that time, it was just, you're such a sponge as you're taking all that in. You can only stay at the London studios for about 9 months. So you sort of leave there, but you've met so many, you're at the bottom, but your network is much broader than someone who's just got one runner's job at one place. You're kind of stuck, not stuck there, but you just don't know the same amount of people. So the other bit of advice I always say to people is, like, if you do get a runner's job, don't worry about the exec producer. Worry about the production coordinator. That's the person who's going to get you a job again. So anyway, I did that, left, and then it's time to sort of try and stay within TV. I worked on 24 Hours in A&E, first series of that, night shifts, which was wild.
When you said worked on that, what was your role?
So I was a runner on that.
Fine. Okay.
So and I'm just like...
So you're effectively a freelance runner at this point, gaining a lot of knowledge from different... I imagine from news to 24 Hours in A&E to sport, you're getting a lot of different learnings within this. Yeah,
for sure. And I always think like investing in yourself is really important. And I think even then, I sort of could see other runners who would come with the production to the London studios on that day. And essentially you could say that they were above me, but I was meeting all these people.
Yeah.
And so I remember thinking, the wider that base is, the less narrow it gets as you go up. Because say you just did 24 Hours in A&E, and then, because you've got that experience, you're only going to get another documentary.
Yeah, that's
you are stuck. Yeah. Whereas if you've done daytime TV, a comedy, a chat show, sport, a documentary, that initial base is lovely and wide, and that will give me a different opportunity. So that was amazing people now, and there's so many incredible people in most places that you work. Then I did OMG with Peaches Geldof.
Wow.
Back at ITV.
Yeah.
Again,
so still running at this point. So not in front of camera.
No.
I'm intrigued to know where that started.
When that happens. Yeah. So, okay. So to fast forward that. So we did that. From that, got on to what it was. It had been GMTV. It was currently Daybreak.
I think Daybreak. Yeah. Rings a bell.
Daybreak was Adrian Charles and Christine Bleakley.
Yes.
That quickly changed. And it stayed as Daybreak, but then it finally got itself to, and actually, sorry, it was still Daybreak, and it would, some new people would come in. And after about a year or so, I'd worked all over. And actually what happened was, I was sort of waiting to get that credit in the bank. A bit like I was saying about the run and you put the tea down. I was trying to do the same, because I think people that go, I'm a presenter, too quickly.
Yes.
I always had it in my mind, I will not call myself a presenter until that is my job. And
I know what you mean by that.
Yeah. Yes, I bet you do. I bet you do.
Yeah.
And so I then got this job producing. I got sort of headhunted, I guess, to be this sort of researcher for our entertainment presenter. This guy called Richard Arnold, incredible talent, incredible friend now. He was a MC at my wedding. So funny. And we went, we did a million junkets, behind the scenes things, all these things. And I would write his hit every morning. And when he wasn't about, you'd get the latest reality guy who's just finished X Factor. So Ryland's first ever presenting gig, I produced him for that week.
Okay.
But we'd also have, people from Union J came in and did a week. Brian McFadden did a few weeks. And then Louis Spence came in and did a week. And Louis Spence, absolutely lovely bloke. And very quickly he went, why aren't you doing this? And I was like, I really want to do this, but the moment's not happened yet.
Yeah.
And we did a red carpet with Denzel Washington.
Oh, sorry. You've gone up a notch with your name drops here.
Sorry. Well, yeah, but you've got Denzel Washington. It's not me. It's Louis Spence asking the questions. I love Louis.
Yeah.
But I also think that sometimes you're the guy who asks the questions, or you're the guest who reacts to those questions. Because when you have to ask the questions, you need to remember the questions, and they need to be good. And so Louis Spence was just sort of like panicking. It was a mess, and a mess of a great opportunities. Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? I need to grow up here and ask the exec producer of this.
Yeah.
And say. So in the meantime, I'd done a show reel and things like that. I sort of got a domain name and had a website. Again, being ready for this moment to a point. I went in there and went, we've got Louis Spence doing this week. We've had other people. I really think I'm better than them. And he liked me anyway. And he said, okay. He said, have you got a show reel again? Yeah, I've got a website. I'll send it to you now. And I think that's another thing, is that to be able to do that, to go,
brilliant
bosh.
Advice. I think that's brilliant advice, being proactive. I've in my own career, but I've spoken to so many people in their careers that they've got an opportunity from saying, I want to do this, or I want to be proactive, or chucking themselves into the deep end. I think that is just spot on.
I guess you've got to do it at the right time, right? And so, yeah.
But my point with that is, sorry to interrupt, is that you can say to 10 different producers or 10 different people, I'm ready for this, or I want to be considered for this or that. 9 out of 10 of them might say no, probably will say no because they've got someone more experienced. But I always think it only takes one for them to say yes. And also, what's the worst that can happen? Because I've had people say, no, I don't think you're ready, but thank you for putting you in your mind. I don't think there's any downside to being willing and being proactive. And like you said, having that show already done, because if you hadn't had that show, he might have gone, well, I've not seen you, so I've got nothing to base you on.
And I remember other runners who wanted to be presenters, and I remember saying to them, they were more charming than me, but they didn't have their show reel. So how can you get through that mini hurdle of going, well, I've seen this. Like I can see that, oh, okay, I see you've done a couple of interviews, like, this is funny, right, got it. And I think the credit in the bank is important. I think sort of, when you are at the bottom, you need to it's upward management, isn't it? You need to get that sort of status with people. And when people can kind of go, but whilst, it's about managing it all. Like I would do that as well. I was sort of, with the sports guys, I would go, I'd get them a tea or whatever, like, and they've seen you about, and they go, "Can I ask you a question?" Be curious, and because I think also people, this is maybe it might feel a bit underhand, but when someone kind of above you, when you kind of go, "I'd really love to learn. I'd really love to learn from you," that's really that's a really complimentary thing for someone to have, right? And once they then give you that advice, you're their horse. So they kind of want you to succeed because they go, I actually knew that. So that can maybe feel a little bit sneaky, but I think it's also, it's just getting a rapport with people, right? And I had a rapport with that guy. I think that's something with my journey. What worked for me was that I had credit with that guy. He knew I worked hard. I sat right in front of him all the time. He didn't know I wanted to be a presenter. I wasn't shoving it down his throat.
Now he does.
And now he does. And when he goes, have you got a show reel? Do I know if you're legit? I go, yes, bosh. So the next day, I sit outside of the meeting room, his office. His name's Carl Newton. And he comes out. And so the whole team is like 20 people come out, and they all start they're sort of nodding and pushing at me. And I'm like, what? And they said, so the entertainment
He wants
scene
another
then
cup
said,
of tea.
Yeah, he said he'd like another. Yeah,
Green tea.
yeah. He said that green tea was rubbish. He said, "Yeah, James is going to do the
Amazing.
Arnold
All
Schwarzenegger.
from you being proactive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's going to do the Arnold Schwarzenegger red carpet that evening." And I'm like,
Arnold Schwarzenegger. Wow.
Yeah, he's got this new film. So went and did it. Another thing that was interesting was I did the red carpet, and it's one of those, if you've done a red carpet, you've got 5 questions, you've got 10-minute interview ready.
Tiny slot with loads of people around you, battling, fighting for the same space, the same talent.
And we're really lucky because we would put it out the next day. It was great exposure for them. We had an incredible movies guy who got able to get us this access. So we're often like second or third on the list. And but I had about, when you just come up to you, they go, oh, actually, the person with the clipboard's gone, we've only got time for about 4 questions. She's like, right, I've got to get VT out of this.
Yeah.
And I did it, and how it felt, because your brain is whizzing, it felt bad. I thought, oh,
in
no.
what way bad? Because I'm intrigued to hear this about your first presenting experience, because I've been there and I speak to a lot of people, and you take a lot of learning. I feel like with my journey, and a lot of people have said this, is that you can do all the learning in the world, but nothing compares to actually having that experience and being there in front of camera for the first time. So how do you dissect actually your first time in front of the camera, that moment?
I think it was such a big moment for me. You thought about it for a long time, and you think you can do it.
And a big name to go in with first as well.
Yeah, totally. And also, I think you think wanting to be a presenter is a very odd thing. I remember getting really upset. I was very drunk, but it was my birthday, and I was like, I got very upset because I'd had this idea that I wanted to be a presenter, and I've not for about 4 years at this point. I'd not done any presenting. So it's like, I don't even know if I'm good at this, and I'm maybe wasting my 20s chasing it. And so you then get the moment, and it was short, and you think, oh no. And then I got back, from Leicester Square, and it's like 10-minute journey, but it's felt like an hour because I just wanted to see this footage. And I watched the footage, and I thought, it's not bad. That's okay.
Really?
And I think you talk about like kind of experiences and with everything, do it, find out, go down the road. You're net up because you're net positive because I don't want to do that anymore, or I'm not good at that, or maybe I am. And a huge thing for me that I've always kind of been able to kind of maybe trick myself with a little bit is that how I feel on camera and how I look on camera, fortunately, and I don't know if it's the same for everyone. Some people can be very twitchy on camera. Fortunately, even in that moment, I looked very comfortable.
Yeah, one thing I'll say about you always come across very relaxed and very comfortable on camera. It's not the case. No. You do look very relaxed and very comfortable, and you are yourself on camera and off camera, which I think is another really important point. And one bit of advice I've had with presenting, when people ask me for advice, I always say just be yourself. It sounds like people go, all right, is that it? I go, no, there's a lot of things I can say, but there's a lot of people who try and be someone else or talk in a different way, or don't relax in the chair, or will sit upright, and it's like the most natural presenters. You watch Ant and Dec, for instance, they are so relaxed in each other's company, and so natural. But
that does come with air miles.
Of course it does, which is why I was intrigued to know how you critiqued your first experience. But I think that's a very good point, is that be yourself on camera. Don't try and be something you're not, or try and be someone that you like. We can all have role models in the space. It doesn't mean you should try and emulate their presenting style.
That's such a
it's
great
like if you start
point.
singing, I wouldn't sing like Adele because I can't sing like Adele.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I can't sing anyway, so that's maybe
please
a
don't
side
sing
point.
like Adele.
I won't sing.
But that's, do you want to skip forward a little bit? I think that's interesting the way I then ended up at Ball Street. My first, because I'd been in TV, I then was like, oh, okay, you've got to say, make sure you subscribe and da-da-da-da. Yeah. And I got put into this show, like second week at Ball Street, with all these other guys that have got YouTube channels that they've built up. I've joked with Paul Machin about this.
And you hadn't had your YouTube channel at this point. You'd come from TV to Ball
I'd come from
Street.
TV. Basically, the short story with TV was that I had those moments, was doing well, was getting more and more because the presenter, there was a lot of things he didn't want to do. He wanted to do the next rung of interviews. And so I was out doing these things, and it was brilliant. And then from what I hear, someone above that kind of got annoyed about that, and I kind of got put back in my box.
Politics involved,
as ever, and often that happens, especially in those kind of places. And there's a lot of egos, right? So I then got put back into my sort of producer box, and I couldn't get out of it. And I remember saying, we've got these guests here who are doing they've come in at 6 a.m. They're doing a 3-minute hit on this show. And they've got them, they're here for 20 minutes. I pitched to them. I said, why don't I interview them in the green room? We can put it on YouTube. And they were like, nah. They went, I just don't really see it. Okay. And there was a moment there. So the moment that got me out of that was I pitched an idea to Niall Sloan.
Yeah.
The top guy at ITV Sport.
No.
And I
interviewed him for my dissertation at university.
Did you?
I did a dissertation about the critical impact of Sky B's of Sky acquiring the Premier League and how it changed, and I interviewed people from Satanta at the time, BBC, ITV, and Sky as well. It was really
that's great that you did that for you. Yeah. So I pitched an idea with me, another guy, and Lauren Souness, who's Graham Souness' daughter. Okay. Who I was kind of working with those guys, and it was this idea that it was a bit like what's the show with Ant and Dec and Cat Dealey back in the day, whatever that was called. I can't remember the name of it now. You people all know. It wasn't CD UK. It was the one before that.
Oh,
I can't remember what it was called. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay.
Basically, it was like it was a TV show in the morning, bit of fun, more fun, for ITV. And I pitched that to Niall Sloan, just cold email, sent it to him with my showreel, and he said, "This isn't going to work, but I'd like to meet you." And so he took me up, and he said, "This isn't going to work because this would be an entertainment show, and that's a different budget." So I wouldn't be able to do this anyway, even if I wanted to. But
fair enough, this is out of his control, sort of thing. Yeah.
But I've watched your show reel, and you've got something, mate. Like you really have got something.
That's
here.
Brilliant for him to take the time to meet you and do that.
Incredible, and in terms of a sort of make you move and go right. Okay, if this guy thinks I can do it, my dream is to present the World Cup final. Yeah. Then he said you need to get into sport. And so by this point, doing really well. Love the people at Good Morning Britain, but I always wanted to get back into sport, and I was getting to about 28, 29 by this point. And so as soon as we got our mortgage, I quit my job, I was like, I need to get into sport, I need to get into football. And he had said that to me, so I was like, I've got to show. It's the same thing. I've got to show that he's right, and he's shown belief in me because there's Lauren Souness there, and there's kind of other names, and he went, they're all great, but you've got something here. You've got to get into sport. And it was huge for me. And so I left, wasted all my savings trying to get a job.
Wow. And you just said you had a mortgage at that point. So that's a risky moment.
Yeah, totally. And it was, that was a weird time for sure. But it was right at the sort of, I guess, entry point of the start of football media online.
Yeah.
I waited 6 months, but I got 3 job offers all at the same time to Ball Street, which of course I took. At the same time, I got offered to be the producer of Copper 90's, what was it called? Comments Below. So I would have been a Vooge and Poets producer, which I think Timsy obviously did. Yeah. And the third one was to work for 90 Min with Ben Haynes. Yeah. Who, and everyone's obviously still knocking about, which is great. Yeah. Anyway, I took the Ball Street job. But back to the presenter thing. I did this first thing and I couldn't get I was trying to be too TV.
Really?
And just very quickly you're like, that doesn't work. No. You've got to be yourself. Yeah. So I think that comes with Air Miles as well. You go, actually, I just need to be myself. That's enough.
Yeah. We were chatting before actually, because it's quite interesting. You're one of the few people that are experienced in both the TV, YouTube and podcast space. And I've done a similar route to you in that I've sort of started in TV, still do TV, but a lot of what I do with Sky, as you know, with Saturday Social and things, is very much an online audience. So I've seen both sides of it. So I'm very intrigued to get your take on what you think the differences are with TV and social content, because you're perfectly placed to answer that.
So now, what did you mean today?
It's in terms of like the audience and making content, because you alluded to the fact there that you had to be slightly different. I don't want to put words in your mouth. When you went to Ball Street, right?
Yeah, and I think it was a lot more. I guess it was raw. It was you were yourself. It was flick it on and talk to the camera and make a connection.
Less scripts. It was
no
just
scripts.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that to your point, and TV very much so structured. I see in the sort of TV that I have done, I've seen a lot of fear, and part of that is due to timings because you have ads. and you
Yeah,
need
it's a
to
great
make sure you get to those points.
So it does have elements of it have to be. To be
Yeah,
fair.
yeah, for sure. So to then have the space in between all of that, you know, like right now we've gone on a couple of different tangents, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Whereas with TV, I think you need to kind of keep it moving a little bit more. I think what you would see, you also have big corporations, and people are safe. And I think even me myself, I could see the people that understandably had been there a long time and weren't going anywhere.
In TV, you're talking about here, yeah.
In TV, and therefore they weren't. They didn't need to stretch or develop themselves, and so because in TV you go, I need a cameraman, a sound man, and so that I can go and shoot this thing. You go and shoot that thing, and then you come back, and then you go into an edit suite.
Yeah.
So you don't need to know how to edit either. You're still a producer, absolutely, of course you are. And I think when the budgets then come back, or sort of budgets get bigger, be it in YouTube, for example, you have an editor and you have that. But it's just, I went from this big company where you just needed to have a solid idea and be able to kind of maybe write a script. And for me, with Richard, write jokes, and we were so aligned that was huge. Like, you know, I learned so much. I keep using the phrase air miles. That's because of him, because I'll be able to talk to him and go, okay, how do I do, how do I get into this? All that stuff.
Experience is massive.
And he was so good. He was so good. Still is, obviously.
You sound like that. So good. So good. Got visions of that.
Yeah, that's on your mind. So I think there is a lot of fear in TV. I think there's I think there's a lot of fear of what is new. And I think the biggest problem for TV is that it is linear, right? You go through the different, and they're trying to change it with iPlayer and all those things, and now even more so with everything getting clipped up and put on YouTube. Saturday Social is a great example of that, and the correct example of that is that you make this output, but you make this output useful, and you make this output that will work on TV, but will work on I think that's a good YouTube point as well, right?
And actually, when we have production meetings, a lot of the time it's a social first show, but a lot of what we do with like our features work on YouTube, but also work on TV. My dad will watch some of the light-hearted interviews you're doing. I love that episode of Lies, and the younger generation on YouTube also can consume it. So,
but even in the studio, it's the same thing, isn't it? You're clipping that up and you're putting it out there. So it's about kind of being getting that right, and that is fascinating, because I would talk to this day. People are like, So what are you? I'm sort of like, you're sort of underground with YouTube a lot of the time, apart from certain people. And that's why I think it never clicks in my mind that. So I went to a concert with my wife the other day, and it was at London Stadium, and there was 50,000 people there, and fam was like, how many of them would you get in your if all your subscribers were in the place? And I was like. I said, I'm not trying to flex it, but I'm just trying to I couldn't comprehend it. It was, I was like, well, it's this times 6.
Yeah.
And she was like,
incredible. Yeah.
So, but when I walk the street, people come up and say hello now, certainly more than they used to, but there's still, there's still that disconnect, right? Yeah. But from what it was that.
Yeah.
It was that. And I could see this was struggling.
What TV you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. From day one of being in YouTube, and obviously it's it's the horse I'm on, so that suits. But I could absolutely see that TV was struggling and had to change. And we're now sort of like this, I would say. Whereas I think the control that you have in terms of being able to have a YouTube channel, the things that you can say no to, the things that you're beholden to. It's very useful for YouTube, and also the eyeballs, the influence, the the connection that you have with the community that you can build as well. Yeah. And whereas TV, there's a few problems. One, big companies only have so much money, so there's only so much they can pay people. Yeah. Whereas I have a small, flexible team, so that makes that easier. I can make a decision like that. I can move a video like that. I can make a video as long or as short as I want to. So there's all that flexibility as well. And then the other thing, the big thing I think I always thought with TV was that in terms of that connection, one, BBC, ITV, all these things, they are letters. It's not a person. So with Ball Street, the reason we failed is there was too many people. There's too many people.
Why did Ball Street fail? You used the word fail in your
fail's
own
dangerous. It fails a bit dangerous. I think so. My element of it failed.
Yeah.
My element of it, I believe, failed.
Why?
I believe it failed because it was Ball Street, and it was this sort of collective, but you had people that wanted to see Paul.
Remind us of who was involved.
So
Yourself,
Ball Street,
Flav.
So Ball Street was this idea of this sort of fan network where you've got all these fan channels, that can all kind of come together, and then brands can sponsor them all.
Yeah.
And it means that everyone makes money, which is great. And that's how that could work. Obviously, you needed its own media as well and its own channel as well. And so I came in to be the sort of main guy from Ball Street, me and Flav, Craig Nance, Adam Rosebum, and a few other guys around it to build that channel. But the problem probably was that it was kind of, let's find out what you think, the Man United fan, and who's very biased. Now let's think what you, the Everton fan, who's very biased, the Liverpool fan. And so whoever you were bringing in who might have enjoyed that, they don't want the other guy.
Right, yeah.
So it was, maybe a bit convoluted. It was a little bit kind of all over the place. And I think from a personal point of view, I was sort of I was the main guy, but I was to the side for sure.
Because you were in a presenting and producing capacity there. So you were, I imagine, coming up with content strategies, editing, uploading, but also appearing in front of the camera. How did that sit going back to you wanted to be a presenter, but your background was producing at the time? Was that, well, this is the perfect gig, it's a bit of everything, or you were spinning too many plates?
I think we were spinning a lot of plates. Basically, I mean, the very basics of it was that often it was me doing the producing in front of camera, and the editing and the filming would be Craig Nance. So he had those bits and I had those bits. And I think, look, he was so good for me because, you know, it allowed you to be a producer and a presenter, which I think is what you should want to be.
Yeah, because it makes you, the only thing I'll take of that is it makes you better at both as well. Yeah. One of the things that I took
and appreciate both
with my journey, because my journey was quite slow getting to presenting.
Yeah.
But I'd been a runner, I've sat in an edit suite, I'd directed shoots, I've done graphics. But by the time I was presenting, an understanding of live studio, graphics, editing, and it stood me in such good stead to become a presenter.
Yes.
And I think you made such a valid point earlier where people just want to be presenters now at the age of 17. And you can be, and there are some great presenters at that age, don't get me wrong. But it's really important to learn your trade because that will only help you.
Totally. And also, so for a long time, the thing I'd struggle with, and it'd be disappointing because I don't have an agent, but I used to have an agent. As soon as I got the red carpet, it was mad. Literally getting all these emails going, we'd love to represent you.
Really?
Like, wow, which is crazy. Whereas anyway. So did that, but I would always say in these meetings, it's like, I'm a producer and a presenter. So I thought that was a good thing.
Yeah.
But what it actually did for a lot of people's minds, it kind of took a sheen off you. Whereas this sort of word talent is funny, isn't it? But when you are just talent, and I think we've seen this with a lot of stuff that has come out within television in the sort of recent scandals, let's say, is that the talent are sort of just here. They're just put on this pedestal. And I was always kind of like, well, no, I know what you're going through. So that's you get an extra producer as well.
Yeah.
But I think they would just be looking at the shiny talent thing. Yeah. And actually it was wrong. But in time that became a strength in working with different people, because it's like, I can come on board, and once they know what you're like, and then know that you're sort of there to help them, but let's just make the best thing you can. You know, my break with the Premier League obviously didn't end great, but the reason I got it is they were like, you know, did screen tests with everyone in YouTube, and they were like, you're like, that was really good or whatever. But also they had an opportunity to get me to produce it as well. And that, like, you talk about being able to do everything. By that point, I would be doing the show, 3-panel show, and someone would mess up, and I'd know what the edit was, where we needed to kind of go to come back in, or all right, this needs to be tight, or let's just get that bit just so we've got it.
Yeah.
All those little things are very, you know, are super useful, you know.
And in terms of your journey, you mentioned there quite honestly about Ball Street. You enjoyed it, but it didn't go long term. Was long term as perhaps you imagined. Was EXO the next stage? Because I remember then at that point, because we were playing football around this similar time together for the same team, weren't we? Yeah. And that was when you started doing kickoff with True Geordie EXO. So how did that? Was that? Were you in a freelance capacity then, or were you at a bit of a stage in your life where, once again, you didn't know what the next step was?
So I think on a personal note, absolutely felt that way.
Really?
So Ball Street was, you know, it was hanging in there. It was a plucky underdog. And as a company, it lasted a lot longer than most. You know, I'm not going to list other companies, but a lot of those other companies kind of went big and went bust.
Yeah.
And Ball Street didn't. And it deserves huge credit for that. And it was a sort of, it was such a mix of people, and actually everyone that's worked at Bull Street has gone on to do like really great things. But yeah, on a personal note, I don't feel like it achieved the heights that I would have liked it to. But it was an incredible part of my life. But it got to a point where I don't know if you remember TFR.
Yes.
So TFR,
Football Republic.
Yeah, so that they'd spent a lot of money on that. True Geordie was, the main sort of face of that. But that channel was just kind of dormant, and they were trying to sell it. And Bull Street kind of wanted that.
Right.
Because they thought, we've got this amount of subscribers. We can go and get that one. That's going to be useful. So we were trying to get that. And in the end, someone else got it. But the other person that got it, who is very famous now, they kind of went to Brian and said, would you want to do this channel? But then when they said, we'll pay you a certain amount for it, it was nowhere near the amount of money that it would need to be.
Right.
So it then kind of came out, and through that, there was then a conversation with Lawrence McKenna, who was one of the first people to work at Bull Street, with the guys at Bull Street, and they said, why don't we just start, why don't you just start your own thing that you kind of want to create? And they sort of thought about getting Stephen Tries involved and Will in as well. Yeah. And it all started to happen, but it happened within Bull Street. Okay. So I was still staff. Adam Boltwood, who we both know really well as well, is a wonderful talented human being. Oh, so talented as well. He had been super successful. So anyone doesn't know him, he was the guy who kind of built Football Daily and then built TFR and then went and worked with Hashtag when they were really kind of like going off initially and breaking new ground in space.
I've worked with his brother Alex as well.
Yeah.
Also talented.
Yeah. And he's now at the Premier League, an amazing person. And so they were able to kind of get him involved as well. And it made a real splash. Like it was cool. And I think with the 4 people that you had there, I mean, wow. Like Brian is, I remember doing a shoot with Brian, and he had to do pieces to camera. And obviously I've worked with a lot of presenters.
About True Geordie for people that
knows
your name yet. Most people would.
And he knocked each piece to camera out like that.
Really?
And I thought, wow.
What, one takes and stuff? Yeah.
Easy. So good.
Yeah.
Engaging, charismatic, just an incredible talker. Like right up there, like with everyone I've worked with. Absolutely. Like top 3, if I really think about it, maybe he's number 1. Like an incredible talker.
Yeah.
And then Will and E, like just an incredible brain. I think he's the GOAT of UK YouTube.
Do you?
Yeah,
do you know what? Essentially, I was going to ask you that. You think he is the most singular? I'll ask that again. You think he is the most talented UK YouTuber?
I think that the sort of amalgamation of being funny, being able to connect, being able to understand the algorithm, being able to do the work, put the work in before you even make the video, thoughts on the title, understanding the algorithm. Being creative, going the extra mile. He's phenomenal. And I think in terms of people's journeys, like for me, I kind of want that. I want slow and long.
Slow and steady, yeah.
I want a slow 50-year career. That's what I don't need any dramas or anything like that. And I think Will's kind of done that, but just kept going. Will as well, just an amazing person. When I hit 100K on my channel, and we're sort of mates, right? But I don't spend a lot of time with him. When I see him, it's wonderful, right? When I hit 100K, he got my address and sent me a bottle of champagne.
Did he?
And I thought, wow, like what an amazing person.
Wow.
Yeah. So
and that must be nice for you. You've just described him as the GOAT of UK YouTube. He's number 1 for you. So for him then to recognise your talent. And for Will and E to send you a bottle of champagne through the post. Yeah, and I mean, it wasn't... That must be a proud moment for you, that. Huge moment, because I think the thing that you learn over the years is that it's more... It actually is about more than numbers. Like, obviously, it's about, creative expression to a point. It's about looking to achieve. It's okay to be ambitious. But you want it to mean something. Yeah, I agree. And... I actually didn't think Will liked me. I had a feeling that Will was like not really, yeah. I was just, sometimes you just get this idea that, he's not, I think I annoy him. Do you know what I mean? Clearly not. And maybe I do, but like the fact that he was just that generous, I thought was just, what a great sort of marker of the guy, But obviously, just such a talent. Stephen Tries, I mean,
He's so funny.
Yeah.
Like, just funny bones. And just, some people are just a bit
Quick
giddy
with
with
his humour as well, isn't he? Very quick with his
Yeah.
humour.
And I was so excited to be around him. Because, sometimes you go, so handbrake's off. Right. Can we just chuck jokes at each other? So that, but again, so different. We've got three very different. And then Lawrence McKenna, I mean, such a talent. Like, and very different from the aesthetic, from this understanding of brand, or understanding of how to make something look good, distinctive, but different. So as a 4, that was like, in terms of and most things in life, it's you can only make a decision with the information you've got.
Yeah.
And that was a no-brainer once the 4 guys wanted to kind of be together.
So amazing starting point with the 4 guys. You said what happened next?
So, well, we made some great stuff. I mean, I say we. I don't think you can involve me in it. To be honest.
No, but just to confirm, you were producing capacity this time.
So my involvement kind of grew as it went on. So initially I was a bit lost because Adam Boltwood had come in, as we've spoken about, like, above it all of it. But he was also sort of come in to essentially kind of audit and figure out why the Wall Street Journal hadn't done great and how can we make it better. And so for me, my nose was out of joint a little bit just because I was like, oh, what about me? Like, what do I do?
What's your role?
Yeah. And so I was then kind of like, I would love to get involved in this. And actually, it was interesting. Brian sort of wanted to come in and meet the team. And so he took the meeting room. We all kind of went in one by one and had a chat with him. And
separately.
And I'd not met Brian.
Right.
So it was all quite intimidating because Brian can be a little bit intimidating. Right. He's a big dude. And but I remember like straight away having quite a good connection with Brian. And kind of, I guess it was an opportunity for me to kind of show my ambition, and also kind of, I was like, this looks really exciting. I'd really love to be a part of this in some way, and I don't really know how I'm going to kind of be a part of it.
But you didn't want to lose that opportunity.
Yeah, well, I think, look, he wanted to meet us all, so it's about like, okay, what are you about? What do you want to do?
Yeah.
And I'm an ambitious person, so I was just kind of, I just sort of said that. But I remember us kind of getting on quite well, quite quickly. And then, but I was kind of on the outskirts of it. But as the sort of months progressed, I was sort of, and the Wembley Cup happened as well.
And you captained EXO at Wembley in the Wembley Cup.
Which is obviously all down to Brian. We kind of got a team together, started doing that, and then we started to have a few training sessions. And as you know with me, I'm quite loud on a football pitch.
Lots of talk.
Yeah, so we then, when we had these training sessions, it was kind of like, well, who's going to take it?
Yeah.
And Bolt was kind of like, so I sort of you end up taking it.
Yeah, that's class.
So then they're kind of like, well, you need to, because I wasn't even in the squad initially.
Really?
Yeah, and as soon as we found out it's Wembley, and it's Wembley, I was like, Adam, I need you to get me into this squad. Like, I have to be in this.
Yeah.
And he was like, the bosses wanted, I don't know if Steve-O knows this, the bosses wanted Steve-O the Madman. They wanted to try and get some other influences in. Yeah. We played with him the other week.
Yeah.
And I was like, I work my nuts off here for this company. What? Unfortunately, I kind of made myself a little bit indispensable in the sense of like, it's kind of part of the training. And then when you're in the training, you get to play a little bit and they go, oh, you're okay.
Yeah.
And then we play. And then I was kind of in, and because I kind of, talk a lot, you're then able to kind of try and get everyone together and help and organise.
And you play centre mid. A lot of the stars were aligning here for you, weren't they?
Yeah, I think so. And then also I think, again, it's a similar idea. It's like, okay, this isn't what I, ego-wise, is a gentle bruising there in terms of, I've failed here with the Ball Street thing. We've got this guy who's got to come in, try and sort it out. And there's this other thing. Yeah, you get a bit of FOMO there because you're like, I really want to be a part of that as well. So, but you've got a decision to make. And Adam was always like wonderful with me. And so it was around that time that I both started my own channel, because I sort of sat down. I remember when out with my wife, and I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. And like, what if I just get, if I leave, I've got nothing. I have, and looking around, I worked in a fan network where everyone else has their own channel.
Yeah, that's a great point. You didn't at the time.
I had nothing.
So EXO for you then was huge for you. Not just from a development point of view, but actually you're having a chat with your wife about where you'd go next. Yeah,
and huge in the sense of like, I don't think I'm part of that. It seems quite clear that I'm not part of that. But by trying to kind of, I guess, be a team player, because I think when you're sort of when you could have your sort of nose put out of shape, the best thing is to do is kind of be good about it, you know, try and help. And I could see it was a difficult situation for Adam. So it was like, you know, how can I help? How can I be a part of this? Like, that looks like an exciting project. And obviously it was. So then as that progressed, I started to get involved more and more, had a good connection with Brian. So then there's a few times where, you know, I'd come and help this or that shoot, you know, talking about the one earlier where he's doing pieces to camera, end up producing that section of it or whatever it might be. And so you're then able to be a part of all of that. And then, through that, Brian, bless him, was, you know, he was like, oh, you know, we want you to do it. And then he said, oh, you know, I'd love you to captain.
Wow.
And obviously it's funny, isn't it? Because, you know, charity matches don't matter that much.
No, I know what you mean.
But I think also sometimes, I think as long as it doesn't cross a line and it's okay to be bothered about it. It's okay. It's okay to want to do well.
But when are you going to play at Wembley again? So
mate, I lost a stone.
Exactly.
I was like, I need to be able to run here.
Clearly matters to you.
Yeah, petrified about the F2 and like just getting a run into the ground. So it was one where, that was an incredible experience. All of a sudden, you're around these people that are big names and, you know, you've got big brands getting involved, and we made a splash, and down to sort of Loz's sort of artistic direction, and also, you know, Boltwood being able to steer it and just be a world-class producer, which he is. And Wembley was special, so special for me.
Yeah, like Cafu, Robbie Fowler, Perez.
Beat David Trezeguet. Yeah, that's my claim to fame.
Yeah. And who got Captain Jimbo?
Exactly. There's a bit before it, but there's a clip where I've gone, so do you want to play, I said to Cafu, do you want to play right back or right of a three, or do you want to play centre midfield? And he goes, put me somewhere.
Don't worry about it, mate.
Boltwood looks to Gary, he goes, I think he's going to be fine.
Who was the best player on that day?
Cafu was the best.
Cafu by mile.
Oh my God.
Best non-football player. So celebrity or influencer.
In our team?
On the day. Because it was 4 teams, wasn't there, right?
I mean, I'll be honest. We were sort of drinking it in. Didn't watch the game before.
Yeah.
I think the best player is the lad who scored for Rebel, went on to play for Hashtag, scored a load of goals in there.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name now. I think he's probably the best player. For sure. But it was a weird event where it's like, it was brilliant, and we were the underdogs, and we gave it a go. And we hung in there.
Loving it. So I remember watching it, and your face was like, just being so happy for you, because you looked like the happiest person to be there, if that makes sense.
Sure, you know what I mean? I think I probably was.
Like that the whole time.
Yeah, and get to sort of live it in terms of it being a competitive game and wanting to do well, I think is okay. And I think there's a line. I think sometimes maybe I'm a little bit busy with that. But I guess it comes back to that, you know, what if we did beat them?
Yeah.
You know, that would have been, wow, what a day that would have been. And the fact that we took it to extra time, I'm not sure how, again, was like, life's about peace and joy. And so, like, you should just be focusing on one or the other. If you're struggling, you know, find peace, try and find peace somehow. If there's a moment to be enjoyed, get the joy out of it. And so I think that's all we were trying to do. And it was a buzz. Yeah. It was a buzz.
I bet it was. So when you look at that, you've mentioned the talented people, well, the 4 talented people we know about. You've also mentioned the talented people off camera that some of our viewers, listeners might not know, but I can vouch for how talented they are as well.
Sure.
You're talking about the Wembley Cup. Why do you think EXO is still not going now with all of that said and all of that talent?
Well, first of all, Stephen Tries has he's basically done graffiti on the channel because he's changed all the titles.
Right.
He went in there to like things that I don't think we can repeat. Look, I was a fly on the wall and I wasn't on every wall.
Right.
But my take on it, I think, is that, you know, we talk about, say, the TV structure, very clear hierarchy. And that person's in charge, and you listen, you do your job. You listen, you do your job. I think we tried to put a structure in place, but when you've got Brian and what he's built, and you've got Loz and his understanding of what, you know, he wants to be and create. Stephen was just having a good time, I'll be honest, but which was actually huge respite, I think, for the channel at times.
Really.
And then Will as well. You know, we've spoken about how highly I feel about Will, but he himself is, you know, they all have very different visions on how they kind of want to make content, and they are all the top dog.
Right, okay.
You know?
And that works in the other way, did it? So the fact they had a big profile from the outside, I would think, well, that's great for a group. You look at Sidemen, Beta Squad, they're all huge in their own rights, and that sort of helped their growth. But you're saying that was actually the detriment to the channel's growth because of the lack of a hierarchy.
Yeah, on my personal view of it, is that although Adam was above it, I don't think Adam was able to really be able to go, right, guys, I need you here at this time, and you're going to do this. or this is your video.
Right.
I think that was the sort of struggle with it a little bit. It's like going Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola, Sir Alex Ferguson.
Yeah.
We'd like to all come and manage this team.
Right.
Difficult.
Yeah.
Difficult. And so Adam is so incredibly difficult, impossible for Adam.
Was that frustrating for you then at that point? I'm looking at your face when you're talking about the Wembley Cup and how exciting you were working with these people that the group didn't, I wouldn't say fizzle out because they've all gone on to do amazing things themselves. They've all been hugely successful. But was that frustrating for you that the group didn't achieve what you think it could have done?
For being candid, I don't really care.
Right.
If I'm honest.
Fair enough.
If I'm honest, because I think it was a shame. I think it could have been enormous, and I think we've seen that.
Yeah.
You know, you look at Beta Squad, look at what Sidemen have been able to do.
Definitely could have been, right?
Oh, enormous, right? But also, I think certainly with content creation, but life, like it's just chapters in life. There are like, and you're doing that like you've had it yourself, right? I was doing that show then.
Yeah. Fair.
And you know, was doing I thought I was in with the Premier League doing FPL show, the first ever presenter for the Premier League's YouTube channel. And you
Massive
thought that
gig,
was
right?
it.
Massive gig.
Thought so. It wasn't. It didn't. It didn't work out like the way that I wanted it to.
Is that frustrating at the time? Because you obviously I've done
scary
various shows.
at the time, mate. It's heartbreaking
when you're
at the time.
working with the Premier League and then you're no longer, at the time, what is your mindset?
I'm petrified, mate.
Really?
Yeah, I'm so scared because.
Scared of what, can I ask? That you've lost that job or what that means going forward?
So when you're at Ball Street, you're staff, right? And then so once you leave that, so I left that and I left Ball Street because I got the Premier League job, and I was like, you've got to go now.
Yeah.
I also had started my channel by that point. I was doing the kickoff at that point, and things were really exciting.
You're in a freelance capacity here, being able to do whatever you want effectively, but working across multiple things.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like, you know, if you're not going to jump now, when are you going to jump?
Yeah,
and you're coming back to the idea of like, I'm not going to call myself a presenter until I am a presenter. I remember I went for the Extra Factor job.
Yeah.
Like the online presenter one.
Yeah.
And I didn't get it. And I remember going to train, I took a picture of myself and I go, I'm going to remember that for when it works out. Because I was amazed I didn't get it. I thought I'd done all right. But again, it was about followers. Again, and actually the reason I started my channel was because someone got a presenting job and they had a dormant channel, but it was big.
Interesting.
And he got the gig.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm here. I'm in the building. Why have I not been given it?
Yeah.
And I was like, I need influence. I hate that word, but I need an audience. So I'd started the channel. And that was a bit tumultuous. Ball Street weren't really happy with it, or certain people weren't. But I had to. You know, I was in the middle of nowhere.
To start your own channel because you wanted to grow an audience so that interestingly, so that you might get future TV jobs at the time. Was that part of the?
I think it was about progression, right? And it was about progression. It was about ownership. It was about control. It was massively about investing in yourself. I think when I panic, I invest in myself. Like, what can I do? And looking around and thinking, if everyone got let go, if they stopped the Ball Street channel now,
what would you have?
Flav's got the Fighting Cock. Sam's got United People's TV.
Yeah.
Everyone's okay.
Right.
And I had nothing.
Wow.
So I had to. And I think also, again, another one, Brian was a huge supporter in terms of wanting me to sort of go and do it. And so I just had to start it. Had to. And so, this is a few months down the line. Channel's doing okay. Felt like a good time to do it. And the short story with the Premier League job is that the Premier League, although I thought I was in, the Premier League has different sort of sections, and the YouTube channel got kind of an agency got that.
Right.
So, and that meant that they were kind of over here. Yes, it was a Premier League show on the Premier League show, but I was over there. So because I thought, get that, then I could do some live reporting for the Premier League at grounds. I could definitely get in there in some way, surely.
Yeah.
And you're in. Because I do want to do live sport. I really do.
Still your goal? Yeah.
Still a goal.
Yeah.
Still a goal. I think it was the goal. And now it's a goal because the world's changed and my career has changed. But yeah, so we're doing well. Hosting the show, writing the show, singing the theme tune. And then COVID hits.
Yeah.
And so that stops. I end up doing the Premier League quiz.
I
don't know if people remember that.
I remember it. Yeah,
Did a Premier League quiz,
they
which
got
was
good numbers because there was nothing to do in lockdown, wasn't it?
and we did a
remember
quiz
that.
quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas very
you
quickly
did.
everyone had done
I
a
watched
quiz.
it, yeah.
So that was amazing to kind of have your own like show,
Yeah.
I guess at that point. And then as I say, because there was this agency at the same time, Premier League Productions were doing an FPL show with James Richardson. They still do it today.
Yeah.
And I was always thinking, why are we doing this if you've got that and you could just plonk that on there?
Yeah.
And then it started to kick off again, and they put that on the YouTube channel. I thought, uh-oh. Now at this time, the channel started to sort of struggle because I got the Premier League job, but I wasn't wanted anymore on the kickoff. So, and I think when you're out
When
of that,
you say wasn't wanted again, was that what were the reasons?
I don't know, man. I think it worked out that I was going to the Premier League. I think
Fine.
there could have been a more honest conversation, but honestly, it all worked out. And I totally understand why the change was made, and it made the show better. Absolutely made the show better. Hugh Izzy is absolutely better on that show. So he replaced me.
Right.
He did a really passionate show in the Europa League final and got kind of huge numbers. And the show had a sponsor. And so why would the show have the agreeable QPR guys who are smiling when they can have the guy who's incredibly passionate about a club like Arsenal?
Passionate,
Yeah. And I mean, I get why you say ranting. Hugh Izzy speaks incredibly well about football.
But I know what you
very
mean.
Intelligently,
Can have a reaction to it. Like I doubt you're going to live stream a QPR game, which will be detriment to you. And I've actually seen you say, I've really read an interesting quote about you saying you love being a QPR fan, you'd never change it because of your family heritage, but it has been to the detriment of your career in some ways.
I think it was.
And that's a prime example, I presume.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great example, an understandable example. And life a lot of the time is about numbers, sadly. Can you make it more than that? Yeah, and the moments and decisions you can make to allow you to do that and retain your integrity, absolutely. But so me kind of being, I think I had a feeling that I was going to be kept on it. I'd been told that I was like, there was the desire for that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, that wasn't the case. That's where I was a touch disappointed.
Fine.
But I think the glory years of the kickoff was when Hugh Izzy was on it. Absolutely. But yeah, I think once you're out of that group and you're still trying to keep your channel going, that can be a bit scary.
Yeah.
And I think the channel was struggling a little bit, I'll be honest. And so then I moved. And that day I got a call from the Premier League and they said, we're not doing the show again.
Wow.
So that evening, me and my wife are going to go for a walk and a chat. And she said, I've got to ask this. You will go back to being a producer if you have to.
Wow.
And I'm going, babe, give me a minute.
Babe, give me a minute.
Give me a
So
second.
you'd lost basically the Premier League job and the kickoff in a very short space of time.
So I'd lost the kickoff going into the Premier League job.
Right, okay.
So
that must have been a very difficult...
So the money was the Premier League. My mortgage is getting paid
Understood.
by that.
So that
and my channel's
walk you
doing
had with your
so at
wife,
that point.
It was a tough, where do I go from here type moment for you.
Yeah. And you're sort of like, I think we're all constantly thinking, especially everyone in the space, and you're kind of, one, how have we got here? Two, how long is it going to last? I talk to everyone about that everyone's always nervous about that, especially with algorithms and, it's about attention. And also it's really personal. YouTube and your YouTube channel is very personal. And it certainly is for me.
Yeah.
You said earlier, I'm the same bloke. I'm exactly the same bloke on camera, off camera. And so when that's the case, and your livelihood is down to your success or failure is down to people's desire to spend time with you, that is really personal and difficult. Difficult to kind of get your head around. And so when it's not going well, honestly, it's excruciating. It's
Even
scary.
now, because you've obviously got a lot of success now, but do you analyse that a lot then? You use the word scary there.
Yeah, I think I had to have a bit of therapy last year because I was sort of this.
Did you?
Yeah, because it was getting to a point where it was like
I've had therapy as well.
It was getting to a point where I was struggling with the cycles were coming round too quick. I always knew, like my mum always says, "Oh, you always bubble up," and it's true. I do always bubble up, but it was getting more upsetting, and I always call it a wobble. I like to have a wobble, and it's so funny that, isn't it, when you go, it's happening. and I can see it's happening. And you kind of got to go down to go up almost. It felt like with me. And I was like, I need to get a better perspective on all of this. And yeah, God, you know, once you start chatting, there's so many things that kind of get revealed to you.
Yeah. I know what you mean by
and
that.
things that just aren't true, you know? And sort of, so I've definitely had loads of those cycles, and those cycles don't end. But I think the more cycles you have, it's hopefully, if you start to find these different tools that can help you a little bit, it's one where instead of it feeling like that, it can feel like that, because and often it is driven by comments or views, right? And that's the thing. YouTube is both, you want it to be like qualitative, but it's quantitative.
Yeah,
it's
so
about
true.
numbers, right? And that's weird.
And everything's there in front of you. Going back to your very well placed answer, working in TV where you do a good show, and I've been working on TV shows. Yeah, that was a good show, wasn't it? Yeah. And 3 of you go, yeah, it was. Whereas obviously you've got a quantifiable way to measure it on YouTube, because all the comments there, all the views are there. Then even delving deeper into the analytics, the watch time, the age of the profiles. I mean, it's advantageous in a lot of ways, because I imagine you can package it to brands. They ask for your analytics, it's there. But also a lot of pressure, a lot of responsibility. And I didn't know that you had therapy last year. Obviously,
Yeah, it was.
does that come from the pressure of it's all on you now? Presumably, there's not a
Yeah,
company
man.
paying your wage.
Yeah, it is all on you, and you want it to continue, and you want to do well, and it's just a lot, and I think, you know, I'm a sensitive person, like I am, and
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
as well, yeah.
and I think it means that I think often your weaknesses create your strengths. So, like, I think when you're kind of sensitive. So my armor with that is I will be self-deprecating, because I'll get there first.
Yeah.
And so you can't kind of think I'm arrogant and therefore bulletproof or whatever. But yeah, so and I talk to YouTubers all the time, and everyone's having the same problems. It's the 1 out of 10 or it's the 10 out of 10. And yeah, like I say, like even in say April, we had the channel had a bad April, and then we had the best ever May we've ever had.
Yeah.
And I said to the lads, I was like, remember this, and no, because this is the other horrible thing, right? When you start to do well, you're waiting for it to do. You're not even enjoying the good bit.
Yeah, that's so
Or
true.
I wasn't. I was going, oh, I know it's coming. And the truth is that both will keep coming, hopefully. And all you can control is how good the content is that you're making. Like, let that be the driving force. You know, I watched this great podcast, and it was saying how you can't make a viral video. You can't just go, I'm making a viral video.
Yeah.
You can make, all you can do is make the best video you can make, and and then it is what it is, right? But it was scary, man, because I was trying to do stuff, and I think YouTube's a space where you've got to do, I'm going to use the word tricks, but I think you've got to get it right for the platform. And so there's things that we've gently changed, but also look to retain that integrity at all times, and do videos that aren't going to do well. Scotland might shock you at the Euros. Not going to do well, but my mum is happy with that.
That's
you know, and I wanted to do that video. So sometimes those things, like, that's important as well. But yeah, like the Premier League, losing that, I was like, I remember I was painting my office.
Really?
You know, if you see my backdrop, it's that blue.
Yeah.
I was painting that. Got the call, and he's like, it's bad news. And I thought, oh no. And so I was like, give me till Christmas. This was September. I mean, yeah, we were all right. But I think sometimes that fear.
When you say give me till Christmas, is that the chat you had with your wife?
Yeah,
Sorry, saying
yeah.
let me make my channel work. But
Yeah.
But when you say give me till Christmas, I'm guessing you only had a set amount of time because you've got bills to pay, mortgage, etc. So would you have had to go back to producing had you not made it work with your own channel?
Yeah, if you haven't got enough money, then you can't just keep like flogging a dead horse. You've got to change. You have to, got to change things. It's like, like a football team. It's not working. You have to tweak it. Yeah,
that's what I'd take from that, mate. Is your sort of hard work and your determination is something I've massively taken from this podcast. Because you've sort of, which I know you very well, but I don't know the ins and outs of a lot of this. Had quite a few knockbacks and been very proactive from losing TV jobs, then the Ball Street situation, EXO, the Premier League situation, which I didn't know in as much detail. And you speak very openly and honestly and about the pride that you have in all of those roles. But you've had situations where, what I would say is through no fault of your own, have they not lasted longer than perhaps you thought. So all credit for you for starting your own channel. What do you put the success of your own channel down to then? Because that's probably where you've had the most success, where you've been yourself and controlled the narrative, which is an incredible thing.
Yeah. Thank you, mate. That's really nice of you. The change was the change that I've, my audience will know this because I tell them, and I think that's another wonderful thing about YouTube is you can kind of, I've sort of been able to start this like tradition about on Christmas Eve, I'll do a little video just kind of saying thank you, and something that's maybe December's a very reflective month, isn't it, for us all, and kind of just again, I always want it to mean something. I want and I want my audience. That's what I love about YouTube is that they're there and they're in my Discord channel. They're there. They're with they're on my WhatsApp. Like I message a lot of these people. They help me. It's so like the live show. I've done a live show recently, and some of the things that people said, it was just like in something that feels so fake all the time in terms of a number that's going up and how many people liked it and all that nonsense. Sorry, I swear a lot generally. I'm trying not to. So when you see them and shake their hand and that you've provided a bit of escape for them, honestly, it gives me goosebumps. Honestly, it makes me tear up. I forgot what your question was. What worked? Right. What happened was investing in myself, mate. Again, the channel was failing, absolutely failing. This is around March.
Would you say the word failure? Failing. That's a strong word.
So again, if we go back to the therapy, that is a problem I have. Is I'm a bit too severe with, very hard on myself, maybe.
Because I wouldn't say that it was failing, but it was, I suppose what's fair to say is you're
fading.
Some YouTubers have a hit, they bang early, by 21 they've got 1 million subscribers. Sure. I get where you're coming from. So you felt the growth wasn't as quick as you'd have liked it, is that?
I think it's, again, that's lovely, isn't it? So when I think it felt like it was that. It felt like it was going like that at this time. Yeah, I feel like people just weren't really interested. And it got to March, and I was sort of worrying a bit. And I remember thinking, what do I do? How do I invest in myself? And I was thinking, what about like a live radio show? I think I could do a radio show. I think I could present that really well. So I started to get live streaming stuff sorted out. Like, what do I need? How do I make it work? And from Ball Street, you don't get someone in to do the technical stuff. You've got to figure it out. Yeah. Honestly, I
remember being on a live stream with you at Bullshit and you're doing everything. Cameras, and then jumping in front of the camera. What do you think about the Man United result? I love this, mate. You're everywhere. It's great.
Man. Well, I think now I often edit myself.
Do you?
I'll punch in and punch out because just so if it was about being efficient.
Yeah.
And some of the guys from Ball Street will tell you, like some of these transfer deadline day streams, that it was bizarre. The wires were absolutely and I was like, okay, what can I do? What skill don't I have that I could? Because if this isn't going to work, can I get into radio? Is that something I could get into? And if I'm going to do that, I need to be good at live streaming. Maybe start to get people to speak to you. I got all that set up. COVID hit. There's no football. I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And I thought, why don't I get Football Manager? I'll get Football Manager and I'll live stream Football Manager so it gives something for someone to do. I can do it live. And I could get some of my mates to come on and be assistant manager and we'd have a bit of fun.
Yeah.
So we started doing that and it allowed me to be QPR, allowed other people to support QPR. Yeah. We're all in it together, community feel to it as well. And it worked. Yeah. It started to work. We had these incredible streams where things went bad or good or whatever. Took that from YouTube to Twitch, started doing that, and you're spending hours with people and looking at the camera because it's just you, because there's only so many assistant managers you can get, and connecting, right? Yeah. And I remember thinking, okay, we're going to move here. I know what that office is. I know that's going to be my office. I'd stopped YouTube because I was focusing on the Twitch stuff. I'm going to have one last go, and I'm going to look at the camera. Because I looked at my stuff and I realized with the Twitch stuff how I was feeling such a connection with these people. We'd had this like fake Radio 606 show that we'd created where people would come into Discord and they would play a character. And I would go, well, come on, I think you're being a bit harsh. I know it's been 16 games, we've not won, but and they're going, this is not working. Why is this guy playing? Right? Yeah. And everyone's just having fun, right? But I was looking at camera and we were connecting, and I was like, I get it now. Because before I thought, I'm good at getting the best out of other people. Probably a producer's mindset, right?
Yeah.
And I sort of realized when I'm looking at camera, I'm getting hopefully the best out of that person that I'm looking at. So when I go back to YouTube, I'm going to look at the camera and I'm going to give my opinion. And I did that, and I had the setup exactly how I wanted. It was able to be quick. I had a great computer all of a sudden, which before I didn't. And it was about being able to be quick, be efficient. And importantly, again, another great thing with YouTube, which is different to TV that people forget, is you don't need the answers. You can offer the angles. So I would do videos where I am quite indecisive. Say with any team I'm talking about, I'll give you a few different options.
Yeah.
Because it's not just one way that works. I don't really feel like that.
Do that.
I do that a lot.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there is an out-and-out answer a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So I started doing videos where I was going, Alexis Sanchez is being kind of, they're putting him out in the cold here. That feels a little bit harsh, doesn't it? Is that because of this or that or this or that?
So asking the question, does that help with engagement, you think? Because you're asking questions. And
it helps with engagement. It's authentic.
Yeah.
From my point of view.
Yeah.
Because I would try and do the like big thing of like, it's a disgrace. Yeah. I couldn't do it, man. No. Just couldn't do it. It's just not me.
But that goes back to my earlier point about why people like and subscribe to you. You are very authentic. You are you. Yeah. And I think if you tried to be something you weren't, I think it would shine through. And people might
and it sounds so cheesy, doesn't it? But that is what happened with the live streaming, with the Football Manager thing. You wholeheartedly saw me because I was able to be a QPR fan, be myself, be there for hours, talk to you directly. And so when I came and brought that back to YouTube and was able to give those different questions, I guess if it was TV, I mean, even if it was TV, you'd be able to go, well, okay, I can go away and think about it. With YouTube, I can go, I don't know what the answer is. I'd love to hear what you've got to say about it. Because what I knew, again, from the live streaming, these football fans are, and I still really don't like the sort of patronising nature of the kind of the word fan. And the way that mainstream look at fans. These fans have got massive channels. They are in their own right absolutely journalists. They know more than you do a lot of the time. They have spoken for longer. They've looked at more. They've read more. They know more. They know their fan base more. And so sort of I don't like the phrase fan media. I think,
don't you?
No, I think it's, I think for whatever reason, the connotations around the word fan are patronising and demeaning. And I don't think it allows for and I know these people, so I care about these people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the connection, if you watch anything, what you're watching it for is insight, value, connection, entertainment, escapism. And whatever's giving you that, that's high level content. And probably until maybe 18 months ago, that was still kind of occurring. But now it's got to a point where they're going, well, no, you need us now.
All of a sudden, you need us. For all of it, there's a place where like live sport will always, like you said, your dream will always be king. The viewing figures on TV for live sport will always be high. And there's a place where you want to hear from pundits. But there's also a place during the week where actually I want to hear what, to use the word fans and influencers and people that are specified in that have got to say. I personally love hearing a bit of all of it, and I love hearing the diversity and the difference in opinions. You know what I mean? You watch shows we do on Sky, we'll have ex-players, we'll do interviews with ex-players and current players, then we'll have fans and influencers like yourself. And I like consuming all different types of content because I think there is a place for it. What I think is amazing about your story is that, I go back to your journey, is that you've done all these roles, but you're now getting all of this work from starting your own channel. You've got the Ripple Effect podcast, you're working with ESPN, you've got your own channel. All of that has come from your own channel, which that must make you the most proud, would you say?
Yeah, it does. My dad said we played around the golf and we hadn't really, I'd hit 100K and that was a massive thing for me because at Ball Street,
100K subs.
100K subs, sorry.
Yeah.
I'd hit, we never did it with Ball Street. And again, that self-deprecating joke, I'd always go to Flav and go, just can't do it, can I? Just can't get to 100K. I always do that joke. And so it was a joke, but it was also, I was like, I don't know if I'm good at this.
Really questioning yourself.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
I think there's a line and I think I'm healthier with it now, but I think you can outworked out. You can outworked out. And I think I'm an example of it from, there's different levels of success. Of course, I'm not achieved what I would like to, but, sorry, not finished. Do you know what I mean? But my dad said, I said, I don't, it's not what you've done, it's how you've got there. like in terms of what I make, and I want it to be respectful. I'm really proud of that. Like, and the QPR fan thing was funny because at the start of YouTube, you needed to be a fan of one of these teams.
Yeah.
What has now happened, and I think I was one of the first few, not kind of by choice, but because like, of course, that's my road, was that I'm a QPR fan who loves football. So it allows me to talk with an element of neutrality on all of those big teams.
Yeah.
And importantly, I guess from the viewer's point of view, they'll go, that's not a biased opinion.
I agree with that. Well, so when we do Saturday Social, we'll obviously always sing your praise and say James is a great guest to have on when we want a neutral take. And there's other shows when you want that heated debate. Like we're saying, there's different times, different needs, different
so you
times
can
based
turn
on
a
the
weakness
game.
into a strength.
But that is actually a strength of yours, that you can, and I think that's a strength of your content, is when you're analysing, like you did a video of how Man United won the cup final. And I know that's coming from a non-biased point of view, but it's a tactical insight that's actually quite interesting rather than a United fan. And don't get me wrong, I'll also consume Mark Goldbridge talking about Man United because it's entertaining. But there's a place for what you're doing in a very unique way, I think.
I'm pleased to agree with that. So I guess I think it shows your weaknesses can become strengths as well, and also in terms of for the initial detriment. I think that, let's say like a Saturday Social. If we talk about that, I know from my point of view, if there is a huge game on Sunday, you're not going to get me on. Why would you get me on? You'd get the Arsenal and you get the Spurs fan. You get the Man City. That's, I guess, producer head again. It's like, of course you wouldn't. So you don't need to get upset. And obviously I don't get upset about it, but like it makes. I know if it's an international break, you might want me, or if it's like something like that, you might want me. So like, and again, and also things like let's say the overlap, right? When the overlap first kind of hit, I wasn't asked to be on that. But when you think about it, why on earth would you ask me to be on it? I'm either going to be the presenter, or nothing at all. And I don't think I've actually, because the channel's done so well, I've not done much presenting for quite a while, which is something I kind of want to do more in the future. But yeah, so it's amazing how that sort of slowness then allowed me to then kick off in a different way. So things do compound.
Yeah, that's interesting. That just finally, mate, I think it's been really great having you on, and I've learned a lot actually for someone that I know quite well about your journey. Where do you want to be in 5 years? What's the goal with you? Because obviously, mentioned the podcast, Spotify exclusive podcast. You're doing a bit of presenting. You've got your channel. Where would James Allcott like to be?
Honestly, in the last 18 months, it really has changed. The North Star was presenting that World Cup final. And kind of how do you do it? My feelings on TV, I don't need it like I needed it. I just don't. Am I envious of the things that you get to do? And I think you can always kind of switch it both ways, right? There's probably moments of freedom that I get to have, or control that I get to have that you don't have as much. Yeah. But and we were talking about our journeys. I sort of jumped off here. Yeah. You had to grind it out yourself. Yeah, I did a lot of grinding, it was like a mini jump within the same company to kind of get there. So for me, again, the other thing is, say we're going and doing live sport, that is to the detriment of my channel. There's a reason that Mark Goldbridge does not go to games. Mark doesn't go to games because he has to be there. He needs to be in his seat, in his house to get, so if it's about kind of, if it's about money or your channel in its entirety, then me doing live sport is not a smart thing. So for me, I do want that because I want it for me. I want to be there. I want it to mean something. I want it. And I also, what I've loved about the sort of YouTube side is like, can we enjoy this together? Yeah. So
with your community,
with my community, and I want to be wherever sort of the overlapping of TV and mainstream, like sort of ends up or continues, and I think it'll just get more and more mixed. I would love to be one day the first guy you see. So on screen, this would be the dream. I'd love to be the first guy you see when it's a World Cup final and England are in it and the camera comes on me and I get to do the Des Line and Gary Lineker. Yeah. We're excited, aren't we? I want it to be I want to be that whole YouTube generation's mate who's there, who's somehow got a seat.
Yeah.
That's what I want. But if that doesn't come, I'm okay. I'm more okay with it than I was, like, because I think I'm so chuffed with the people that watch my channel, and and I feel like I have done something real in the sense of kind of I feel like content for a long time I was like, I'm just kind of doing something and no one's really watching and all that stuff. But if you can make something that can make people's days a little bit better, like, and I can be your guy, that's what I like. So whatever that is, from a broad ambition, like I want a production company. I think at some point, you know, I could have an agency there where you could help, you know, the next generation come through as well. And I think just continue to kind of fly the flag for this space, because there's so many talented people. That's what the ripple effect was. It was important for me. They were like, pick 4 guests that you can have on each month. Like you could just rotate. I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to be able to go, Kweku Afari, you're brilliant. Come sit with me.
And what's interesting about your channel is, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but you don't go for the massive stellar names as guests, do you? I think it's fancy. You would rather get someone who's got very strong knowledge. Or
I mean, if you're watching, I don't mind some of those.
No, but do you know what I mean? But you don't go with you in your circle. You've interviewed huge footballers, huge influencers, but your USP with the ripple effect, which is a positive, is you go for knowledge over star status. Is that fair to say?
I would say, am I excited to talk to you?
Exactly. Yeah,
it's as simple as that. Yeah. Like you know,
I mean that in a positive way. Do you know? What I mean?
No, I know you do. I know you do, and I know you do. And again, I think it's like, it's not about, it could be dangerous. Like, it doesn't have to be about the biggest.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Can it be about the best? And like, or people that I'm excited about talking to? Sorry. Can it be about people that I'm interested in, or can offer something I don't? You know, can I learn more about Aston Villa, Ipswich Town?
Yeah.
Like, I guess investing in football a little bit sometimes. And that sounds so ridiculous, but like, you know, I think there's loads of talent. There's so many talented voices out there. So if you've got and it's selfish, right? I sometimes see people go, "Oh, thank you for having me on." I'm like, you have done me a favor by sitting down and spending your time with me.
Likewise, as you have with me today. You've come here as a favor for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think like, and that's it as well. That was the other thing. I was like, this is a great opportunity for it again. I know I said it a few times, but for it to feel real, to sit down with people and give them a cuddle at the start, a cuddle at the end, connect on a different level. Like even us here chatting now, we've probably got to a different level in terms of our connection.
Totally agree.
Than we have done knowing each other 5-6 years, or whatever it might be. So I want it all to mean something. Yeah. And as long as it continues to do that, you know, when we started, there wasn't YouTube, and there wasn't it was this very structured like route to being a presenter, and a lot of presenters aren't producers. They don't write their own scripts. They're just a thing. Whereas another great thing about YouTube is like most of these people on camera are exactly the same as they are off camera. So there's that. It's real in that sense, you know. Yeah,
mate, I think it's the perfect note to end. I think it's the outlet that you've got. I think is amazing, and I just want to say thank you so much for being so honest, man. Learning a lot for someone that we shared a pitch together. Were you sitting there? Were you? We shared a pitch together. Oxshot Royals, Invincibles. I've got to get that in, but I feel like I learned a lot, and I feel like your outlook is so positive, almost like what will happen. You're happy with it, so. I thank you. And as I say, if you've got any tips for our podcast, chuck them our way. But it's brilliant having you on, mate.
Always, mate. Appreciate it.